Hello, my friends. I am back again with another very simple pattern. This is a knit pattern, and it works up a lovely pair of quick fingerless mitts. So I have one done here to show you the finished product. I'm going to go ahead and try it on. This is a size large because I have big hands, but you can see just how beautiful these mitts are, and they're super comfortable. They're very quick to make. I made this mitt here in about an hour and a half, sitting with my knitting group at the shop today. It's Sunday, so we have our little knit hangout where a bunch of people come and they hang out and knit together. So I finished this mitt. I'm going to show the other one on camera so I can show you guys how to make this. This is my new mitt. I have a pattern, a written pattern, so if you're interested in the pattern, it will be linked in the description of the video below, and I'll also link all of the products that I use in this video as I carry all of these in my store as well. But yeah, so this is my new colorway called Fairy Floss, and it's a beautiful cotton candy pastel pink, blue, and purple colorway with some little hints of cream in there as well. And let me tell you, this colorway is like changing my brain chemistry. It is making me so happy just to look at it. And this is by far one of my favorite colorways that I have in the shop right now. And it's available on all of my bases, but this is a DK weight. So this is my Marshmallow Select DK base in the colorway Fairy Floss. So let's go ahead and get started. So for this project, you're going to need some DK weight yarn. I have some here that I've put up in a panel for the shop sample. So I work up a panel real quick to show you guys what the fabric looks like, knit it up, and then I take this panel home and do with it what I will. So in this case, I'm making two pairs or a pair of mitts for myself. And you can see this is a 100-gram skein. I've already worked one pair of mitts and I still have quite a bit of yarn left. So you will be able to make multiple pairs of these mitts from one hank of the DK weight. So you'll need one skein of Marshmallow DK Select in whatever colorway you choose. I have tons of colorways in my shop, but if you really love this one is called Fairy Floss. You'll need that. You'll need a barber cord. I have these in my shop as well. They will be linked below, and these are for holding our stitches. I'll show you how to use that a little bit later in the video. You'll also need a ruler. You'll need a pair of US 6 4mm knitting needles. And I used DPNs. You can use circular needles for the magic loop technique, but for this demonstration, I will be using DPNs. You'll also need one stitch marker that is closed, so following stitch marker, and then you'll need a removable stitch marker as well. So I've got all my goodies ready to go. And then here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my needles. Now, the mitts, I have designed them in 3 sizes, small, medium, and large. And I have included negative ease in the pattern. So you measure your hand, you take your tape measure. Now I don't have a tape measure, so I'm just going to use the barber cords. But you take the tape measure and you wrap it around this part of your hand, and you measure right here what this part of your hand is. So if your hand, like mine, is around 8 inches, then you will select the size, the 8-inch size for the pattern. So for today's demonstration, I will be making the size large because that is the 8 inches and that's what I wear. So if you want to make the small or the medium, which is 7 inches is the small, 7.5 inches is the medium, then they will be listed in the pattern, the directions for those. So I'm going to pull out a long tail because we're going to use the long tail cast on, and I'm going to cast on 34 stitches for the large size. So to start, I'm just taking my yarn And I've got the working yarn coming from the left and the tail going to the right, and you'll see that I have a pretty generous tail. So I'm going to take that, I'm going to drape it over my needle like so, and then I'm going to twist those to kind of lock it on that needle. So I don't have to use a slip knot. I don't like using slip knots as much as I can possibly avoid it. So if I can avoid using a slip knot, I will, and this helps me avoid that. So I'm set up in my slingshot method, and I'm going to go ahead and cast on 34 stitches. So I've got one, actually I've got two on here. So I've got two on here already. And I'm not going to count on camera because I feel like that interrupts you when you're trying to count. So I'm not going to do that. Okay, so I have my 34 stitches cast onto one needle. That makes it easier for me to do this. You can cast on however you prefer to do so. I'm going to try to move this camera down just a little bit so I can get out of this beautiful ray of sunshine that's crossing across here. So give me 1 second. Okay, I feel like that's a little bit better. All right, so I've got my stitches now on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide them across 3 needles. So I'm going to grab another one of my DPNs, and I'm going to sit here and do some quick math here real quick. So I've got 34 stitches, I've got 3 needles. Now 34 doesn't divide into 3 evenly. We're going to have an extra stitch on one of our needles, and that's okay. So I'm going to put 11 on each needle, and that'll give me 33 stitches all the way around with an extra stitch on the last needle, which is fine. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to scoot. So I've got the last stitch I cast on is over here. I'm going to scoot the first stitch I cast on to the end of this needle that it's already on, and then I'm just going to pluck purlwise right here, just like this, off to this needle 11 stitches. 2, 3, and I will stop counting now. All right, so now I've got 11 stitches onto this needle. I'm going to scooch these stitches down so they don't fall off. And it takes a lot to get these stitches to fall off. I can have 3 stitches on these. These are very nice for working small circumferences because these stitches, I can have 3 on here and they don't go anywhere. So if you're using steel needles, you're probably going to have a little bit of a harder time. But these needles that I carry in the shop, the Caspian knit picks, are just fantastic. And you can grab those in the shop. So I've got my other needle. Now I see here, this is the bottom of my cast on edge. And I want to keep that going, kind of pointing toward each other, because that means we're not twisted. So if I go like that, it's fine. All these are pointing in the same direction. Now, if I were to have something like this, we can obviously tell right here that there's something going on, because this is twisting around. Even though these are still pointing to the inside, not all of them are. So keep your eyes out for that. Make sure you're not twisting your stitches up. So I've got my second needle in my hand, and now I'm going to slide 11 more stitches off onto this one. All right, so now I've got my 11 stitches on this needle, 11 stitches on this needle, and 12 stitches on this needle because we have an extra one right there. So now I'm going to move these down just like that. I'm going to move these back up here to the middle just to make sure that while I'm positioning this, nothing's slip and sliding anywhere. Take your tail, move it to the side, grab your working yarn, and then you're going to make sure that none of your stitches are twisted. Everything looks good, so you can see there's a clear line going from this side to this side. We're going to position our needles just like this, like a triangle. Double check once again that all of your stitches are on the inside. It's never a bad idea to double check multiple times, because if this gets twisted, you're going to come up with a completely different thing than a pair of mittens. So now we're going to grab our other needle. We're going to slide this needle down because this is our working needle. This was the last stitch we cast on. Now we're joining in the round to start working around. Now I'm going to hold that yarn back here. It helps to kind of pinch the yarn up against your working needle here for a second while you're getting situated. So I'm going to work the first row, which is going to be knit 1 through the back loop, purl all the way around. So I'm going to get my needle in here to work my knit 1 through the back loop. And this first stitch can be a little tricky because it is that layover and crisscross that we did. It's not technically a stitch, but it can be a little bit tricky to get into. So just go in through the back loop and pull up your stitch and then slide that off. Be careful when you're sliding this off not to slide the next one off because they're kind of tightly joined there. So I'm going to give myself a little tug here to make sure that join in the round is good to go. And then I'm going to purl the next stitch. Now you'll notice that I didn't use a stitch marker to mark the beginning of the round. I technically don't need to because I have my tail here that tells me I've ended a row. So when I'm working around and I see this tail again, the needle with the tail, I know that I've worked an entire row. So I technically don't need to use a stitch marker. But feel free to pop one on right here in between the first knit and the first purl if you don't trust yourself to make that judgment call. All right, so now I'm going to knit 1, purl 1, all the way around to the beginning. So I'm going in the back loop when I'm knitting 1. So I'm knitting 1 through the back loop. And if you get here to a point where you have a knit on the end and it feels a little awkward to do a purl stitch on your first needle, then by all means, take a second and then just purl the next stitch off of that needle. And then feel free to separate them that way. So see, I've purled that stitch and now I've got the stitch here will be a knit. Now here are some pointers if you've ever worked with double pointed needles and you find that they're not comfortable to work with. I'm going to give you some pointers that really help me. So this needle, I always find that it's easier to keep it below the working needle. So as long as I keep that needle below the working needle, it's not in my way. And I can knit purl all I want because I have free range of movement with this needle. Now if this needle were on top, then I'd be battling that needle. And these are just things that have helped me. If you have a different method, then by all means, continue using that. But these are my favorite things to do. All right, so when I come to this next needle here, I'll also move this needle up. Oh wait, sorry. No, I keep it below. This is the one I move below. So I move this needle below. I make sure both of my needles that I'm not messing with right now, I'm only working with this one and this one. This needle's below my working needle. This needle's below my working needle. That helps tremendously. And then I can just knit as if I'm knitting on two single needles. But here's the thing, like these things are going to be in the way. You're going to have to learn to just let them go. You don't have to pay attention to them. If your stitches are cast on at the right tension and you're not using stainless steel, then you're going to be fine. You can just let these things flop around and do whatever they're going to do. All right, so I see my tail yarn here, so I know that I've completed one row. And I can just tug on this and tighten it up. If you see a big gap like that, don't worry too much about it. I've completed 4 pairs of these mitts, and I don't have an issue with any of them with that little gap right there. It'll tighten up as you work, and if it doesn't, guess what? You can sew this end in and squeeze it together. Not a big deal. However, there are some fancy join methods that will eliminate that. I just don't find it necessary because I like to keep things simple. So I'm going to do knit 1, purl 1 for my entire ribbing. And I'm going to do about 11 rows of this. So I'm going to count out 11 rows and I should be good to go with my ribbing. So let's do that one more time. We're going to knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1. And we're knitting 1 through the back loop. And I'll show you what that's going to make this look like here in a minute. Let me get through this first needle. I mean, I'm a sucker. This is called twisted ribbing. I'm a sucker for twisted ribbing. So anytime there's ribbing to be done, you can guarantee I'm doing the twisted ribbing. So you can see here that the twisted ribbing creates a beautiful ridge of knit stitches. Whereas if I'm doing knit 1, purl 1, I find that I just don't get the right look that I'm going for. This right here just makes me so happy. So I have my row of knits that are very neat and clean and crisp. And then I have a row of purls right there running right between them. All right. So let's keep going around. Put my working needle on top of both needles. And then we're going to knit, purl all the way around. This will also help with the edges here where you tend to get ladders with DPNs. The needle position does help with this. So my needles are very close to the fabric when I'm making the stitch if I keep them in this position where the working needle is on top. So I got my working needle on top, and you'll notice when I'm knitting here, look how close that is. Look how close I can get between this stitch and this stitch with that needle below. I've got my working needle on top. I just completed that knit stitch, and now look, they're like practically, there's no space in between there. So if you have problems with ladders, try having your needles positioned this way. It helps me tremendously. All right, so I'm coming up on finishing my second row of my knit 1 through the back loop, purl 1 ribbing. And I'm going to finish the rest of the rows off camera. And I'm going to work 11 rows total of this knit 1, purl 1 ribbing. Now I want you to look. We just did our second row. And remember what that join looked like at the very beginning? Now look at it. You can hardly tell where the join is. And I can pull that tight, and it has practically disappeared. We still got a little bit of a loosey-goosey right there, but that will get even better as we continue working. So go ahead and work 11 rows of the knit 1 through the back loop, purl 1 ribbing all the way around, and then I'll meet you back here, and we're going to start on this portion of the mitt, this section here. So we're going to start working the body. All right, so I just finished my ribbing, and if you're at the same spot I am, you should have something that looks similar to this. It's beautiful. All right, so now what I'm going to do is we're going to start working on the body section of the mitt. So for this row, that's going to be a 1 row repeat, and it's going to be very easy. We're just going to knit all the way around, and we're going to be knitting through the front leg, not the back loop or the back leg. So we're just going to knit all the way across. So we're just knitting those stitches. So we're going to work all the way around, knitting those stitches. And if you don't know how to do a knit stitch, I'll show you right now. So you take your needle, you stick it from left to right through the front leg, grab your yarn, pull it up, and drop that stitch off. You just continue that all the way around. And we're going to get to the beginning of the round here. And there we go. We just did 1 row. So I'm going to do row 1 for 9 rows or 1 inch. So the gauge you're going to need for this pattern, let me see what I wrote down. My gauge is 5 stitches per inch in stockinette in the round on 4mm needles. I probably should have told you that to begin with, huh? So I'll make an edit to put that up at the start of the video. But to continue this, now we're going to work row 1 for 9 rows. So we just did 1 row. We need 8 more rows of just knitting all the way around. So we're going to do that for 9 rows or 1 inch, whichever gets you to 1 inch. And I'll meet you back when I'm done with those 9 rows. So my 9 rows of the body of the mitt is done now. And I'm ready to start my thumb increases. So give me 1 second. Let me actually do something here real quick because I just saw that I didn't bold that section in the pattern. And I have to have it bolded because everything else is bolded when it's starting a new section. All right, so for the thumb increases, what we want to do is we want to increase the width, because if you notice our hand from our wrist, we've got our wrist starting here, we get a little bit of the body of the mitt, and you'll notice that our hand right here starts to get a little bit wider. So I'm accommodating for this section of my hand right now. So we want to do some increases. So we're going to knit 16 stitches. So starting here, we're going to knit 16 right at the beginning of our row. All right, so I've got 16 stitches knit. Now I'm going to make one right. And in order to do that, you'll see between my stitches here, I have this little bar that's running. I want to grab that bar from back to front and place it on my left needle. So you can see now that the stitch is running from this way across the needle and back to this stitch. So an easy way to tell if you're making a make one right, at least for me, is to see the orientation in which the stitch is leaning. So this new loop or this new little bit we put here on the needle is leaning to the right. So now I need to knit into the front of this stitch. So I'm going to take my finger and push it down just a little to loosen it up because it can get a little tight on that needle right there. And I'm going to insert my needle from front to back, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then slide that off. So now I've just created a new stitch and it will be right there in between this stitch and this stitch. Now I'm going to knit 2, 1, 2, and now I need to increase another stitch, but this time I'm going to do it differently. I'm going to do a make one left. So in order to do the make one left, I'm going to take my right needle, I'm going to pick up this loop, and I'm going to drape it over just like that. And you can see that new stitch here is leaning to the left. Now, because it's leaning to the left, we don't want to knit into the front because we're going to have a big hole right here. So we're going to want to knit into the back of this loop. So what helps me is you can just knit into the back here like so, and that's fine. But what I like to do is I'll just switch it over like that, and then that automatically positions my needle into the back. So you can, by all means, just go into there. It's just as easy, but I'm just in the muscle memory of doing it that way. Now you'll notice, look at our stitch here. So our brand new stitch is leaning to the left. Our brand new stitch over here is leaning to the right. So that's what we want. And now we're just going to knit to the end of the row. All right, I've reached the end of the row. So our row 2 is going to be a plain knit row. So we're just going to knit all the way around. And if I'm knitting a little bit too fast, you can slow down, or you can just let this run until I reach the end of the row and then pause me, because I do admit I knit a little bit fast. Now when you reach your increases, so I just did my increase needle, so I've got my 2 stitches that I increased right here. You shouldn't see any gaping holes. If you see gaping holes, it means that you've probably knit into the wrong leg of that stitch, and just note it for next time not to do that. All right, so now I'm coming up on my last needle that I need to work. All right, so I just completed my row 2. I'm going to complete row 1 and row 2 3 more times. So I'm working them both. So I'll work row 1, row 2, that's my second time. Row 1, row 2, that's my third time. Row 1, row 2, that's my fourth time. So it's going to be a total of 4 times we're going to work this. But after, in the instructions, it'll tell you what to do. It'll tell you row 1 and then row 2, and then it'll say repeat row 1, 2 through 2 3 more times for a total of 8 stitches increased. And then you will have a stitch count. In my instance, I'm going to have a total of 42 stitches when I get done with these repeats. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do that increase row one more time. So I'm going to knit 16, 1, 2, 3, so I've got 16. Now I'm going to make one right. So once again, I'm going to pick up that loop between the stitches from front to back and set it on that left needle. Push the stitch down a little and knit into the front. I've increased 1 stitch. I'm going to knit 2, and then I'm going to make one left. I'm going to pick this up from front to back, drape it over the needle, just like so, and then I'm going to knit that stitch in the back leg. Done. Now I knit to the end of the row. And then once I'm at the end of the row, I'll start my row 2 of this 2-row repeat. So my row 2 is going to be knit all the way across. And if for some reason you get distracted and you can't remember how many repeats you did, then just count your stitches. You're going to want a total of 42 stitches by the end of these repeats. If you're working a large, if you're working the other sizes, you'll have to check the pattern for the sizes for those, or the counts for those sizes. All right, so now I'm reaching my row 2 end, and there we go. So now I'm going to do that 2 more times. I'm going to do an increase row, plain knit row, increase row, plain knit row, and then I'll be done with my thumb increases. I'll meet you back there when I'm done with those. All right, the thumb increases are now done. I have 42 stitches, and I'm ready to continue the rest of this section. You'll notice that it can be a little awkward to try to get your work to lay flat at this point because we do have quite a few more stitches over here than we did before, but that's normal, so don't worry too much about it. So for this next section, we're just going to work a knit round all the way around. So let's do our knit round, and we're going to do that 6 more times, or until the piece measures 5 inches from the cast on edge. So what I mean from the cast on edge is down here. So when you lay your work flat as best you can, it measures 5 inches from the cast on edge. So you can see we got quite a ways to go before we get to 5 inches. So we got to be up here. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to keep working my knit stitches all the way around. And if you're on gauge, then you know that it's going to be about 6 rows. Or sorry, 7 rows. After you complete your row 1, it's going to be 6 more rows. All right, so there's my row 1 done. I'm going to do that 6 more times, just knitting around, and I'll come back and show you what we do next. All right, my 6 rows are complete, and I'm ready to move on to the thumb separation and the palm of the mitt. So this is where the fun part happens. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my barber cord. This is where this comes into play, and we're going to knit 15. So I got 1, 2, all right, there's my 15. Now I'm going to let that rest for a second. I'm going to grab my barber cord, and I'm going to straighten it out a little, and I'm going to get the tip of it here, and I'm going to push it onto that needle. So now it's attached to the needle, and I'm going to count out 12 stitches. So that leaves me with 3 stitches on the needle. So I'm going to take those stitches and I'm going to hold the 3 and I'm just going to slide down. I'm going to get those stitches onto that cord. And I want to leave 3 stitches on the needle. Now let's double check. We have 12 on the cord. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Perfect. So now that we've got our 12 stitches on there, I'm going to bend just like this to separate the work, pull my stitches back, and I'm going to pop that cord off the tip of that needle, and then I'm going to pull it and just let it go. So now those stitches are off the needle. They're held onto that cord. Pretty cool, huh? So now I'm going to push my stitches back up, my 3 that I worked before, and I'm going to backwards loop cast on 2 stitches. So I'm going to take my working yarn, I'm going to wrap it around my thumb just like this, pick it up off my thumb onto the needle, bloop. There you go, there's 1. Do it again, and there's 2. Now I'm going to grab these stitches here and just knit them. I'm going to pull a little bit tight, but not too tight. You don't want these stitches too tight because you'll never be able to get into them. And I'm going to knit those 3. And then I'm going to knit to the beginning of the row. And there I am. I'm at the beginning of the row. Now let's see what we've done. So we have separated our thumb now. Now you can see we have a little hole to stick our hand in. It's at this point you can go ahead and try your mitt on. So you can slide your hand in there. Be careful not to knock your stitches off. And look at there. You've got your thumb hole. You've got your stitches you just cast on. And now you're ready to work this portion of the mitt. So let's pull this off and then get set back up to start knitting again. So for this next row, we're going to work knit stitches all the way around. So we're going to knit to the beginning of the round, and that's going to be our repeat. We're going to do that a total of 7 times. So knit all the way around a total of 7 times, or until your piece measures 6.5 inches from the cast on edge, whichever comes first. So I'm going to knit all the way around. And I'll show you when we get to those backward loops cast on stitches. They can be a little tricky, but don't worry, we're going to get it. When you come here to the barber cords, just move them out of your way. They're going to be a bit fiddly, but just move them out of the way. They'll be fine. Okay, so now we're working our backward loops cast on, and these are going to be a little bit tricky to get into. Just take your time. I like to pull them apart a little, then stick my needle in and work them like that. We work them just like a regular knit stitch, but they're just a little tricky to get into because it can be a little tight. But there you go, we're in them. Now I'm just going to keep working across that needle. And then work to the beginning of the round. Just doing our knit stitches. All right, so I'm going to do that 6 more times. I just worked that first row, and we're going to do a total of 7. Remember, 7 rows for that section. And I'll be back when I'm done with that. All right, you might notice that I no longer have my nails So what seems to be to you only mere seconds, it has been almost 2 days since we last were here knitting on this mitten. And okay, anyways, you didn't need to know that. I've worked the body of the mitt. I have my rows here completed, and now I'm ready to work the ribbing on the top of the mitt. So for this, I'm going to start with knit 1 through the back loop, purl 1, knit 1 through the back loop, and purl 1. And I'm just going to continue doing that all the way around. It drives me nuts. I need to double loop my pinky finger. So I'm just going to keep knitting around, knitting around. Ta-da! Now I'm back to the beginning. And I know because here's my cast on tail and it leads up to this one. All right, so I'm going to continue doing that for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 rows. I'm going to work 9 rows. So I've got my first row done and I'm going to work 8 more. And I will see you back here when I'm done working the 8 more. Okay, so my ribbing is done and now it's, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to knock you around. Now it's time to do the bind off. So you can do a normal bind off or you can do the bind off I'm going to show you. It's a little bit more complicated. It's a sewn bind off, but it creates such a beautiful rounded edge. So I highly suggest it. I will go slow and show you how I do it. So I'm going to pull out quite a bit here. So you can see I've got quite a bit of a tail here. And I'm going to snip that. And then I'm going to take the end and I'm going to thread it into a tapestry needle. So I've got my little tapestry needle here. And I'll show you a trick for, like, this is a heavier weight yarn, right? And I've got a very tiny tapestry needle. So what I do is I pull it like that, and then I pinch it, and then I just shove it through like that. And it works. So I'm gonna pull it like this. I don't know how to enunciate correctly right now. I don't know how to tell you what I'm doing here. Okay, so these first 2 stitches we're going to, now I'm doing the tubular bind off or Italian bind off. I don't know what it's called. I've been doing it. I forgot what it's called. But I'm going to secure these 2 stitches here because I'm going to need them later. So that's where this comes into play, my little removable stitch marker. So I'm going to put this stitch marker through those 2 stitches just like that. And then I'm going to secure them because I'm going to need them in a little bit. Now, I don't do a setup row. I've never done a setup row. I don't think it's, I don't know. I've never seen a difference in doing a setup row and not doing a setup row. so I'm not doing one. But there is a setup thing here if you're following other instructions on how to do this, but I don't do it. So I'm going to take my tapestry needle and I'm going to insert it from left to right, kind of like I'm knitting that stitch, and I'm going to drop it off the needle. And then I'm going to come to the second stitch and I'm going to insert it as if I'm purling. And I'm going to pull, oh my God, I'm going to pull that all the way through. And just like that. And don't do it too tight. Just give it a little tug and then be done with it. Like, don't sit there and yank on it really tight. All right, so the next step is this stitch right here. I'm going to purl it off. So I'm going into the stitch purlwise and I'm going to drop it off. Then I'm going to take my tapestry needle and I'm going to go behind here and in between these two stitches. So I'm going in between the two stitches. I'm going to pull my needle up a little bit and then I'm going to go in knitwise through that stitch. And then I'm going to pull the yarn. Now it helps me, I kind of pinch back here so I can keep grabbing that yarn. See how I'm pinching that yarn between my fingers back here? That's just something that helps me. And that's technically it. It's not that complicated. So now I'm going to do it again. I'm going to go into this stitch knitwise, drop it off, go into the second stitch from the end here, purl. And then I'm going to just pull through. Just like that. Give it a little tug, nothing too tight. I'm going to purl the stitch off. And then I'm going to go behind and between these two stitches, pull up a little bit. Now I'm going to knit into that second stitch. And then I'm going to pull through. Done. Do it all over again. Knit off, purl. Purl off, knit through that second stitch. See? You just get in the rhythm of it, and before you know it, you've got a nice little bind off. Now you'll notice sometimes you'll get a stitch like that, where it's like, what the heck? Just fiddle with it. Now look, it's gone. Knit off, purl on, purl off, knit on. Knit off, purl on, purl off, knit on. Now sometimes if you're pulling too fast, you'll get it to where it loops up around here. And if you're not paying attention, it'll look like, hold on, I've got this looped around too. It'll look like this, and you're gonna be like, what the heck's going on? So you should only have two right here. Well, we should only have two right now, but I've looped my thread up around there. So I'll just pull it off. Just pay attention to what you're doing. Don't go like zipping through here. All right, so now we've got two, and we need to get these over here onto this needle so we can continue on. So I'm gonna scooch these down like this, and I'm gonna just slide them over. And then I can throw that into the oblivion that is the top of the screen. Okay, and now I just commence knit on, or knit off, purl on, purl off, knit on, knit off, purl on. Don't get caught on things. Purl off, knit on. Now if you are going about this stuff like this and you're like, oh my God, I just forgot what I was doing, look at your next stitch. The next stitch on the needle is a knit stitch. So I know I need to knit off, and then purl on. Here we go again. This daggum needle. Purl off, knit on. Knit off, purl on. And let's say your dog starts doing something dumb and you have to go get him to stop. So you throw your knitting down, you're like, come back, and you're like, what the heck? Where am I? You're at a purl stitch here. This is a knit stitch. So we know we need to purl off. So purl off, and then knit on. All right, we're back at a 2-stitch needle again. So I'm just gonna pop it over here. Bloop. Aw, man, drop that. Get up here. Okay. You sit there, you come here. So knit off, purl on, purl off, knit on, knit off, purl on, purl off, knit on. Get out of there. Knit off, purl on, purl off, knit on. And if you get confused and you forget what you're supposed to be doing, just remember, first stitch, knit off if it's a knit column, and then you purl on, and then you just go backwards from that direction. So you're gonna, if you're doing a purl on, your next stitch is gonna be a purl off. And then your next stitch is gonna be a knit on. And then if you do a knit on, then your next stitch is gonna be a knit off. I have like 15 different ways to remember where I'm at in this, because it can get a little confusing if you're not paying attention. All right, coming up to the end, and I'm going to show you how to secure the last bit. And if I'm moving too fast, just go ahead and pause me right now. Okay. So now we're at the end here, and we've got these 2 stitches that we've saved here with the stitch marker. So what you can do, and what I do constantly, because why not, I just slip these back on to the needle like this. It doesn't have to be perfect. As a matter of fact, I don't even know if it is perfect, if they're how they're supposed to be. I just slip them on there like that. And then I do my knit off, purl on, and then I do my purl off, and then knit on. And because we've already done those stitches, they're secure already, so we can just drop them off and then give it a little tug. Give that a little tug, little tugs everywhere. And there you go. Look, completely done. So now I'm going to weave my ends in. Might as well. We're here doing it anyway, right? And I just kind of go around the opposite side of the fabric and just weave in and out. I like splitting the fibers too. So I'll push my needle up in through the fibers, like split the yarn. If I can do it, gosh. There we go. So see how I'm splitting the fiber? And that'll just help it lock in. Boy, I love that there's pollen already flying around down here in South Carolina. It's February. It literally snowed last week. But lo and behold, come outside and there's pollen everywhere. And now my allergies are just like destroying my head. Okay. So I'm going to trim that. Bloop. Put that to the side. And while I've got my tapestry needle out, I'm going to go ahead and weave this end in too. There is no science to the way that I weave these things in. I probably do it different every time I do it. But I mean, it works for me. I've never had them come undone. So just go around the leg of one of those knit stitches and just go up a bit. See, like that. And then I'll come back down, splitting the stitches as I come back down, or splitting the yarn, and just pull it through, and then I'll go back up one more time. I mean, it's not the prettiest, but it works, you know? It's on the inside. Nobody's gonna see it. Tardar. All right. Look at there. You got you a nice little stretchy bind off for the cuff of your mitten. Very nice, huh? All right, now we gotta do the thumb. Ugh, right? All right, so get my needle. I love these barber cords so much. Watch this, watch how easy this is. So I get my needle stuck to the end of that, and then I can just go bloop. All my stitches are back on. Love that so much. Okay, so I've got all my stitches on one needle. We don't want that. I'm gonna split them into 4s. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's one needle. 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's 2 needles. And then, I don't know why I'm doing that. That's dumb. Okay. So now I've got my thumb set up here. And I'm going to grab this needle. I'm going to grab, oh, that's not my working yarn. I'm going to grab my working yarn. I'll leave a nice little tail. And then I'm going to hold it, simultaneously holding the needle as well. So I can just stick it like right there. And I'm going to pick up 4 stitches along this edge. You remember we cast on 2 stitches for the thumb? Well, I want to get an edge stitch on each side, and then I want to get those 2 cast on stitches. So I'm going to grab my edge stitch right there. And then I'm going to grab a cast on stitch. Now what I like to do is look for the V's, and I go into the V. So I'm catching both legs of the edge, if that makes sense. And then I go to the next one, both legs of the edge, and then I'm going to grab my other edge stitch over here. And you notice I'm not doing anything like super scientific. I'm just grabbing things. All right, so I've got 4 stitches picked up. Now what I want to do is 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to take my stitch marker here and I'm going to put it, there's my first pickup, second pickup, third pickup, fourth pickup. I'm going to put it right between my second and my third pickup stitch. And that's going to be my beginning of round. Sweet. So now I'm just going to knit around. I'm going to grab my other needle and I'm just going to knit. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just knitting around till I get to the beginning of the round marker. And I'm not gonna lie, this can be a bit fiddly. It's made even fiddlier with, you know, me up against this table edge, but if I was just leaned back, chilling, and like on the couch knitting, I would just be zooming through this. It's easy once you get a handle on it. All right. So now I'm going to keep knitting until I get to the beginning of the round. Ooh, you know what you can do? Let me back up here. You can weave in the end as you go. So to weave in the end as I go, I've got my, this is the tail from where I cast on. I'm going in as if I'm knitting. I'm going to drape it over the needle. I'm going to pick up my yarn and then I'm going to bring it to the back. And then I'm going to knit. And then I'm going to knit a regular stitch. And then I'm going to drape it, grab the working yarn, and then pull it behind again. I'm just going to do that a couple times. Oh shoot, that's caught underneath there. Hold on, let me fix this. I caught that. I caught a purl stitch when I was putting that on there. Okay. All right, so we're back at the beginning of the round. So now what I want to do is I want to knit 2 together. And I'm still going to lock this tail in there as I do this. So I'm going to knit 2 together. And then I'm going to continue working around until I come to the last 2 stitches. You know what? I'm going to drop this dude here just for a second. All right, there we go. And then I'm going to lock him in again. So I'm locking my working or my tail in, and then I'm going to move that back so that way I don't have to weave that end in. I can just cut it when I'm done, which is nice. I'm done though. I'm done with it. I think it is sufficiently woven in. I just need to keep it out of the way now. Oh, my head is killing me. All right, so I'm at the last 2 stitches. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to slip, slip, and then knit. Ta-da! And now I'm going to go straight into my knit 1, purl 1 ribbing. So knit 1. My gosh. I like having my purls on the end of the needles, so I'm just gonna purl with this same needle here so I can get that over there. All right. So then I'm gonna knit 1 through the back loop, purl, knit, and then I want my purl stitch to be at the end. So I'm just gonna do this. Purl, one through the back loop, purl, knit one through the back loop, purl. And I'm going to do the ribbing rounds a total of 5 times. So that was the first time, and I'm going to continue around until I have 5 rows of ribbing, and then I'll meet you back. All right, 5 rows of ribbing are done. So I'm going to remove my stitch marker because I'm back at the beginning of the round. And now I'm going to go ahead and place all of my stitches here on the left. I've got 2 here, I've got an open needle here, so I'm just going to slide these back onto them because I don't want to deal with that. Trying to make this as easy as possible. All right, so now I'm going to look at my other side over here, and I'm going to get all of these stitches onto one needle. All right, so I've got all my stitches onto one needle, or 2 needles actually. And here we go again with the bind off. So I'm gonna do a pretty generous tail here. The general rule of thumb is you want enough to go around at least 3 times, but you know, just get a long tail, eyeball it. Thread my needle. Don't be a butthole. Don't be a butthole. Uh-oh. Did I lose my knack in doing that? It's because I was bragging about it earlier. Ta-da! I got it. Okay, here we go again, right? All right, let's secure our stitches, our first 2. So we got the knit stitch and we got the purl stitch secured. All right, let's clip that and drop it. My fingernail keeps getting caught on the daggum fabric. All right, so first stitch, knit off, purl on. Back to that nonsense, right? Purl off, knit on. Don't go under the stitch marker. Knit off, purl on. This one will go significantly quicker because there's fewer stitches. What did I do? Look, I got it caught around the daggum needle. There we go. Purl off, knit on, daggum stitch marker. It can get a little aggravating, I'm not gonna lie. Now I want you to look. Don't be a pain in the butt. There you go. All right, so now we're back down to 2 stitches on this needle. So I'm gonna flip this needle around, push it down, pull these up, and slide them onto here. Get away from me. Knit off, purl on. Purl off. Don't split the thread, knit on. Then I give a little tug like that, and it'll help your yarn fall into place. Knit off, purl on. Let's go around the stitch marker. Purl off, knit on. Knit off, purl on, purl off, knit on, knit off, purl on, purl off, and then knit on, and then now we're back to the beginning, to the beginning, in the beginning. How do they say it? Okay, so here we are again. I'm gonna slide these two back on just because I like doing that. It makes it easier for me. Take my stitch marker off, throw it into my collect all dish, and then I'm going to knit on, or sorry, knit off, purl on, purl off. Oop, I split that. Purl off, and then knit on. Don't split. And then give it a little tug, and a little tug, and a little tug, and a little tug. Drop. Ta-da! Tug it out. There we go. So I'm going to turn this inside out a little bit and make it easier to weave this end in. I'm going to go over here, fasten it, and then just start weaving it in. We're not going for perfection, we're going for completed. If you want to take your time weaving this stuff in, by all means, but I do not, and I have yet suffered for it. It looks good. Trim. Now, before I weave this other end in, I'm going to take a look. I'm going to turn my mitt to the inside out. And I'm going to take a look at where that thread is coming from and see if I have any holes. I do not appear to have any holes, so that's good. So at this point I could just cut that because I've already woven the end in, but just because I'm neurotic, I'm going to backtrack on itself a few times just to lock it in. So I'm going to split the fiber and just give it a good lock in there. So I know for sure it's not going anywhere. I'm going to look around. Yep, looks good. All right. Oh my stars. Guess what we just did? Flip this bad boy right side out. We just finished our mitt. Oh, what? Now we can put it on. And we can put on the other, well, you haven't finished your other one. Or maybe you did. Maybe this is the second time you're watching me. But do that again. Do it one more time. And you'll have 2 mitts. I hope you enjoyed watching this tutorial. If you did, leave me a like, leave me a comment, and subscribe. I do this all the time. Well, not all the time, but I do it pretty commonly. And if you have any requests, by all means, comment below and let me know what I should knit next and show you guys how to knit. Ooh, let me show you something. Hold on. If you've stayed this long, let me show you what I'm working on right now. Let me grab it. So this is the other thing I'm working on. Look at this color. Is that not gorgeous? Mm-hmm. So this is a new colorway that I'm coming out with called Tequila Sunrise. And I'm working up a little toddler, a little child sweater as an example. But I ran out of yarn. So I got down to the ribbing bind off everything down here. But I ran out of yarn, so I had to go get some more from the shop. And I've got to do the ribbing along the neck and the sleeves. But isn't that adorable? Do you guys want this tutorial too? I can do a tutorial on how to make this. It's super quick, super fun. I cast this on yesterday and I'm almost done with it today. All right, well, let me know below. And maybe this will be the next time you see me when I'm showing you how to do this sweater. All right, bye.